Hey, you!
Who, me?
Yes, you!
What's up, happy cultists on YouTube.com?
Would you like to get good and learn everything there is to know about the loose cannon?
No, not really.
That's the spirit! Now let's get started then. Now, before you can become my protege, we gotta understand the weapon and what it can do. So let me explain the basics. Let's hit it! The loose cannon works differently than the other grenade launchers, with its hold and release firing method in a projectile that doesn't explode on contact with the enemy. The projectile's impact damage can reach 50 before fall off, and the explosion can do up to 60, making a single cannonball have a higher damage potential versus pills. The projectile has a fuse time of just 1 second, and can be held in the chamber before releasing to shorten the distance traveled before detonation. Overcharging the shot will cause you to blow yourself up. It'll deal the regular explosion damage, but it's far from an ideal method of combat since you'll do more damage to yourself than the enemy. The item description mentions a 20% boost to projectile speed. More on that later. On impact, the cannonball applies a temporary stopping effect, indicated by this HUD icon. Usually this isn't noticed because of the knockback, but when you shoot somebody in the head, they don't get knocked away and instead stop briefly. Cannonballs that explode in under half a second after impact will cause the explosion damage to mini-crit the enemy and produce the double donk that this weapon's known for. The double donk explosion doesn't calculate damage fall-off before applying, so that part will consistently dish out 81 damage. But it doesn't really end there because there's an interesting quirk about how double donks are dealt. If a previously shot cannonball detonates after you shoot someone with a second one, the first ball's explosion will double donk the enemy. I don't know if this sort of tech has a name, but I personally call them the donks. Since we're getting into the nitty-gritty so soon, then maybe it's time to tell you about some advanced stuff. Like how the loose cannon's projectile can pierce through enemies and travel unbothered when they kill an enemy via impact damage alone. You can double donk someone through it or even kill a whole line of low health enemies like you just set up a maximum ear rape machinal collateral! Editor's note. They only pierce through most of the time, and balls can randomly bounce off enemies when they should die, which segments into the next thing. Most of the time, when you hit someone, the cannonball bounces off the enemy before exploding. Now, usually this just means you're going to take your own shot to the face, but when the cannonball is still traveling in the air after hitting someone, it can still hit other players. Check this out. My intention was just to hit the sniper, but there was a heavy right near him. After the ball hits the sniper, it bounces off and hits the heavy, dealing damage. The ball explodes and both characters get double donked. You could blow yourself up with the loose cannon. I mean, you could do it with the other primaries too, but with the loose cannon, it becomes something you regularly think about as an option. Overcharging the ball to blow yourself up can make for one of the most flexible explosive jumps in the game, with the distance traveled being identical to a sticky jump. You can blast yourself in all sorts of different angles and propel yourself even more in mid-air. On jump maps, you can even sink cannonballs for incredible vertical height. Such sophisticated mobility comes at the cost of health though, as you can survive 2 cannon jumps from full health provided you don't die from fall damage. Airburst cannonballs function like weaker airburst sticky bombs with higher precision, giving you a way to damage enemies without directly hitting them. Ideally, you'll want to land double donks, but a fast exploding cannonball can catch low health classes before they can heal or escape. Airshotting with the loose cannon becomes a fun little game in itself. Depending on what you're going for, you can either directly hit them or catch them with a mid-air explosion. The latter covers a considerable radius around the projectile, so even if you're slightly off, you can still catch them. It still counts, get good. Straight up air shots can knock enemies back even farther than before, or you can outright double donk them in the air. When this happens, you get to enjoy the fireworks display you made. Nice job! Well then, now that you know how to use this thing, we gotta talk about how you personally fare against your enemies. So let's get into the strategy guide. But before we get into class matchups, I'm gonna talk about general strategy. It's wise to use this weapon as diversely as it lets you, with multiple ways to frag dudes all day. Having a whole second before the bomb explodes is important, as you can have nearly unreactable shots thrown at the enemy's general direction. It's often a great idea to save a shot for people that are chasing you when you hide behind a corner. You can easily line up a perfect shot if you sense that someone's following you and time it right. Bomb jumps are great for closing space between you and the enemy if you have a decent chunk of health. Wide open areas are detrimental to how you play because the enemy has all the free room in the world to dodge you. Corridors are where you're at your strongest, as there's hardly enough wiggle room to avoid what's coming. They won't even be able to advance forward if you're knocking them backwards constantly, making the loose cannon ideal for stopping advances on key chokes. This weapon synergizes well with the Demoman's various shields, as it can play similarly to the sticky bomb launcher. The passive buffs from the shields greatly eases matchups versus pyros, demos, and soldiers too. Lastly, knocking enemies off the map is just the cherry on top of a perfect weapon. With that out of the way, it's time to finally analyze the class matchups, starting with the Scout! Oh no. It seems like you'll be pitted against your hardest counter. Always moving, never making it easy to hit a shot. How does the loose cannon demo fare? Honestly, your odds have never been better. The reason is that you can kill a scout with just one bomb if you land a double donk, greatly easing the matchup. Scouts still have to work reasonably hard to take you down, and to have it all be undone with one lucky shot means they have to approach the battle more carefully. Even if you don't donk them, knocking them away can give you a quick breather and keep them out of your danger bubble. If you're unconfident that you can hit him, you can chip away at him with airburst bombs timed right and aimed well enough to catch them. All that being said, Scout is still going to be a very hard matchup, but that doesn't mean you should give up trying. Soon, it'll be you that puts the fear of God into their hearts. The Soldier! The matchup against Soldier isn't too much different than normal. What the loose cannon offers to deal with soldiers isn't completely substantial or game-changing, but knocking them back with a well-timed shot can throw off their aim. It still takes 2 cannonballs at minimum to kill one from full health, so it can end up being a battle of attrition while both of you chip away at each other. Your secondary choice could also help if you equip a shield, passively reducing enemy explosive damage and making it easy to get in on one. Depending on who you're fighting, stuff like this could happen too.
It's time to jump up in the air. Jump up, don't be scared.
To shoot at the enemy's feet next time. The Pyro! These guys are actually easier to deal with, believe it or not. Any other type of demo would tell you horror stories about air blasts ruining their day, but loose cannon demos fret not over such matters. Air blasted cannonballs are bugged and don't deal mini crit damage against you. It doesn't even produce a true double donk, even if the conditions for one are met. Controlling the fuse time of the ball can also help if you want to fire and have it explode in their face as they try to air blast. This renders their greatest defense against projectile spam into a gimmicky option that might backfire on them. Now, imagine all this plus equipping one of the shields for extra fire resistance. You might even force them to run a shotgun. The Demoman! The fight against a rival demo can be tricky to pinpoint down. As mentioned with Soldier, you can throw off their aim if your projectile knocks them back before they shoot. It takes a minimum of 2 projectiles to strike one down, and possibly more if they have a shield. Sticky bombs can be a nuisance to deal with, but with the loose cannon, you can knock them away or ruin a perfectly set trap by exploding cannonballs near them. Fighting shielded Demomen is a different thing altogether. What you usually want to do is wait until they charge at you, and then you can stop them mid-charge with a cannonball. From then on, you can deal with them however you want, but the basic gist is that you want them outside your melee range.
It's pronounced melee!
Right. The basic gist is that you want them outside your melee range. Unless you do, I mean, that's cool too. The Heavy! Various aspects improve when facing a heavy with the loose cannon, but they come with an important downside. You can double donk heavies all day because of their movement speed, but you'd have to get closer to them to do so, since the short fuse time greatly reduces the total range you can engage them with. This puts you in more danger since a ready heavy can mow you down in a split second. You can kill Natasha and Brass Beast heavies in only 3 bombs as opposed to 4 with stock, provided you land your donks. Also important to consider is the knockback, which can put a revved up heavy in an unfavorable position like behind a wall or out of sight. Speaking of walls, they're your best friend. Peeking around walls is the best way to actually engage a focused heavy. Try and evade their shots, read where they're trying to move, and play defensively. Know your limits, and don't overextend on a heavy. The Engineer! They used to fear you. Now, you fear them. Unfortunately for the loose cannon demo, conventional sentry nests are harder to deal with due to your shorter practical range. Your balls don't explode on contact with an enemy building anymore, though the impact plus explosion still has a higher damage potential than stock. You can actually destroy a level 3 sentry in 2 well-timed cannonballs, kind of like the lock and load, but unless you have cover, fighting them directly is suicide. Fortunately, mini sentries are easier to deal with since they don't shred you or have immense knockback. As for fighting the NGs themselves, it'd be good to figure out whether or not they have the gunslinger equipped. You can one-shot them as with all light classes unless they have that robot hand. Aggressive NGs might go towards you, shotgun blazing, so account for that when you're priming your cannonball. Essentially, treat them like scouts.
The medic.
This can be a tough one. You've got a slightly speedier target focused on healing the people that are trying to kill you. Medics can survive one double donk just fine on their own, and might use the momentum from it to make a quick getaway. The real matchup knowledge lies in what metagun they use, who they're healing, and what ubercharge you're going to be dealing with. The standard metagun isn't so bad, though you'll never deal damage. Ubercharged enemies take knockback from the cannonball, and double donks launch them even further, preventing progress. Important to note is that you can separate the medic from his patient with a well-timed shot, wasting his ubercharge and leaving the patient vulnerable. The Kritzkrieg is way tougher to deal with, as your firepower couldn't overpower a typical crits receiver before he kills you first. The medic himself is vulnerable during the charge, so he'd be the one you'd want to target. The quick fix is probably the worst of the miniguns to deal with as a loose cannon demo. The extremely fast healing combined with the knockback immunity of this type of charge makes it so that you can't blast them to death or force a repositioning. The medics themselves are subject to the same effects, making them damn near impossible to kill. On that same token, quick fix medics healing you could enjoy the synergy of blast jumping alongside you. Vaccinator medics are a lot like Uber medics, except they have a charge that's split into 4 mini charges. It's highly unlikely that you'll be able to kill either the medic or the patient when charged, but they still take knockback from your balls, so the same advice still applies here.
The sniper.
Don't get seen, lol. It's map dependent, but you can ambush snipers by closing the distance between you as fast as possible. Loose cannon jumps tend to be good for that, as even if the sniper sees you, they have to quickly react to that blazing black blur coming at them a million miles per hour. While they're focused on that, you have all that airtime to decide how you want to engage them, be it from launching more bombs or starting a fight with your hands. Snipers have no way of increasing their max HP, so enjoy the fact that you can donk them for one-hit kills most of the time. Remember though, if you can't close the distance between you and the sniper, it's best not to engage, or find an alternate route to them. Huntsman snipers tend to actually participate on the front lines, so if you can weave around their arrows, you can directly engage them.
The spy.
Don't get stabbed, lol. Another light class that you can potentially one-shot most of the time, except you don't know where or when he'll strike. The knockback of the cannonball is applied to enemy spies disguised as friendly classes, so it's an effective spy check if you don't outright kill them. This can also be used to throw a spy off a path when he's trying to stab someone else on your team, possibly saving his life. So, you've seen her and what she can do. Kinda like her learning curves along with her beautiful ebony skin. She's smooth as butter, and you know she got that badonkadonk. You wanna commit? Well, that's just dandy. But even something like this sounds too good to be true, right? Well, yes and no. As perfect as she seems, you need to learn to deal with a lot of baggage. Because only when you understand her fully, can you ever love this weapon as seriously as I do. In a nutshell, she can be inconsistent. While it's nice that the cannonball can pierce through foes, they can just as easily bounce off foes and hit you instead. Speaking of bouncing off foes, you can have a well-timed shot fail to double donk an enemy simply because they fly too far away for the explosion to reach. Fall damage is a shitty compromise because even that isn't guaranteed depending on how they launch away. Without your donks, you'd kill scouts in 3 bombs, and depending on damage fall off, you might not even be able to kill a soldier with a full clip. Speaking of fall off, a double donk will fail to one-shot a light class if they take 43 damage and below from the cannonball. The weapon states that it has a 20% projectile speed boost, but in actuality it barely goes as far as the other launchers. This combined with a short fuse makes the loose cannon have the lowest range of any of his grenade launcher primaries. Finally, can you spot the difference? You're correct. One of those guns is the loose cannon. The other one...
Reload faster!
This was brought to my attention by YouTube user You're Not Zach, who made this clip of both reloads side by side. It's a crime and should be dealt with, even though the difference is incredibly minimal. That about sums up my gripes with this weapon, but there's one more thing I'd like to discuss. Man versus machine! Do you mind if I use the loose cannon and try something new?
Yes, I mind.
I
why?
spent good money on this man off contract. I don't want you.
There's so many things that this weapon could...
Bro, I've been trying to grind this stuff. Like, I just want to finish this. You really
I just
want
want my Australian. I don't care about trying things.
It's not even meta, dude.
The loose cannon stinks and you stink.
Hey, what the fuck? Hey, don't, what are you fucking doing? Stop! Nah, the loose cannon isn't good in MVM. It's not ideal for handling enemy clusters since bombs don't explode on impact. Knockback is cool and all, but so very situational in a place where Demoman wants to focus on area denial and DPS. Sure, you can knock the bomb carrier into the pit, but so can Heavy, Scout, or Pyro. Even the upgrades for it aren't all that snazzy, as improving damage doesn't actually increase the damage of the cannonball impact, surprisingly. Faster shot speed is kinda awkward on a hold and release weapon, as you can't just send a constant volley of pills by holding the mouse down. Now, theoretically, a maxed out loose cannon could be interesting to try, as the knockback and non-altered damage from the cannonball could make you a versatile support. But why do any of this convoluted stuff when you can have a more consistent weapon like the other launchers? I don't play a lot of demo in MVM, but in all these years, I have met nobody who uses it unironically.
I ain't felt like this in a long time. I ain't felt like this in a long time. I ain't had shit in a long time.
So that's it. I've imparted on you literally everything I know about this weapon. And with that, I present you this. It's yours now. Do as you please with it, but do not forget my words. I hope you excel and have fun. Bye bye, bitches. Hey there! Just wanted to thank you all for watching this video. It was a real labor of love, and I appreciate you sticking it out until the very end. If you like what you just witnessed, you can help support the channel's future endeavors by